A very good morning to all of you. I actually prefer to speak in Malayalam, but the conclave is announced as international. So I think I have to do justice to that. There are many students here, and some of which I understand are new to technology or engineering, first year students. So considering all this, I will be making a very gentle, light presentation, which will also include some introductory material so that the people from the younger years of their higher education will also benefit. So these test slides are to greet you with some greenery. So I will speak on generative AI and research. I am very happy to be a part of this conclave. Last year also I had the honor of being invited to make a short, unplanned presentation about whether teachers would be replaced by ChatGPT. This time, it's a more formal topic of how AI can be used or is being used in research. So, I decided that since some of you may not have applied your mind on what research is, other than casually engaging with that word or concept. So I will also spend some time to tell you what is research in layman's or layperson's terms. I start all my lectures with a dedication to a person who has inspired me immensely during my long teaching career. This is Jerome Bruner, an educational psychologist, who said, anything can be taught to anyone. Anything can be taught to anyone. So it inspires me limitlessly as a teacher. There is one reason why I am showing it here. This is the quote of Jerome Bruner. Now I give you my own quote. And this quote is on AI. So modern AI seems like telling us anything can be learned by computers. Anything can be learned by computers. So earlier slide said anything can be taught to human beings. Now we are saying computers can learn anything. I am very happy to be challenged on this and to debate on this, that anything can be learned. I will make some reference to it from a theoretical viewpoint as to what this means. Now before I proceed, I want to tell you, AI is about the idea of AI or the formal development of AI as an academic discipline is nearly 75 years old. There is a conference in US called the Dartmouth Conference, which ended with a dream of AI, which the scientists and scholars who took part in the conference underrated. And because they said in another couple of years, 2 or 3 years, they would be able to produce a computer which understood human language and a computer which had capabilities of a human being. But they had to wait for another 60 years before anything close to that started happening. But today we can say we are actually realized what the proponents of AI in the Dartmouth conference, John McCarthy and others, dreamt of is now almost a reality. What has happened in 75 years? Why did it not succeed for the first few decades, and all of a sudden, early this century, AI started becoming successful, especially since 2011. 2011 marks a turning point, milestone in AI, when a person called Alexis, who is a student, PhD student of Hinton, Jeffrey Hinton, who some of you know received the Nobel Prize for Physics this year. So Alexis created a machine learning model called AlexaNet. I consider it as the landmark point in AI, after which things have changed. Now I try to answer a question for the common person. What is the difference between AI of the past and AI of the present? I explain that with a small metaphor, which all of you may be able to appreciate. So I call it old AI and new AI. What is old AI? I will give you a metaphor. This person on the left, how old does he look? About 50 years old, 55 years old. This person from Kerala, assume that this person is from Kerala and speaks Malayalam and English. So he is asked to learn Chinese, or he wants to learn Chinese. he has a big problem, because at that age to learn Chinese would mean to join a course. Obviously, he would have to join an online course or an offline course. And in that course, the Chinese lecturer would come and introduce the language. And one of the things that he would say, the Chinese teacher would say, is that Chinese has 20,000 alphabets. This is sure to switch off the learner, because a person from Kerala knows English and Malayalam. English has 26 letters. Malayalam we are not very sure whether it is 51 or 56, but somewhere near 50. But 20,000 is a very huge number to think of for a language alphabet size. And then thereafter, so the person is switched off and a bit scared. That is why the image shows the person as a bit in doubt. And then the lecturer would come and explain the minimum set of alphabets, introduce some words, their meanings, small sentences, ask this person to speak in those small sentences, create new sentences, provide an artificial environment or a context for the person to speak. And not only all of this, after 2-3 days or 4 days, there will be a test paper also. The person will have to take a test paper. This is how a 50-year-old person might learn Chinese. Now friends, imagine if the mother of this person had planned well, this person could have learned Chinese very easily, not so difficult. What should she have done? When this person was 6 months old, you just had to entrust the child to a Chinese family for 2-3 years. Do nothing. And so that small baby is this person when he was 6 months old, given to a Chinese family. And what happens in the Chinese family? This parents, the siblings, all of them start speaking to this person in Chinese. The baby does not know Chinese, cannot understand any instruction given to it. The parents give no lectures, parents give no test papers, but the child learns. We all learned our mother tongue like that. Our beloved mother held us in her hand and then started talking to us, even though we did not know any language. They keep on talking to you, and after some time you start picking up the language. Computer scientists in 1950s to 1990s or 2000s were trying to teach the computer a language like we are teaching an adult. In early 2000, we completely switched to the pattern of teaching a baby. Not teaching a baby or emulating a baby. The baby is not taught a language, baby picks up the language. And all that the baby requires to pick up the language is to immerse itself in an environment of the language, typically a family. So this is the point I would like you to note. We have an old AI and a new AI. In old AI, computers were being taught human abilities like an adult being taught a human ability. And in the modern times, a computer learns human abilities like a baby learns human abilities. This is what old AI and new AI. Because of this approach of new AI, we have made the great strides in AI that we see today. Your ChatGPT or DAL-E or AlphaGo or AlphaFold, Alpha Missense, lot of achievements of AI comes from this approach. I hope you appreciate. It's a very simple point, but nevertheless very profound. Now, for the young people here who are not yet familiar with AI, I would like to also tell you the most common factor of machine learning through a very simple example again. In AI, we talk about models. But in reality, the word model means a beautiful woman walking down a ramp in a beauty show. So I have clubbed the two meanings. So I am going to talk about how to create a model trained to double numbers. How do you double numbers? So doubling numbers is a very easy thing for all of us. The double of 2 is 4, that of 5 is 10. But assume that this lady does not know that. And this lady is listening to two people. One person is called input, the other person is called output. This person is throwing up a number, the other person is responding to it. So when the person says 2, the other person says 4. When this person says 10, the other person says 20. When this person says 50, the other person says 100. This lady is listening to this. The model is listening to this. After listening to it for a while, she gets an idea. She tells these two people, oh, I know what you are doing. Now you stop saying this. I have understood what you are doing. And she captures that into a simple process. What is that process? Into 2. So she understands these people are doing nothing but taking the input, multiply it by 2 and give us the output. So she captures the process that she saw by a simple arithmetic process into 2. I would like to say or claim with a bit of exaggeration that even ChatGPT does only this. Even ChatGPT does only this. The person who spoke on the left, what he said, if you take it as X, and what the other person requires is taken as Y, then Y is equal to X into 2. In general, you could say that Y is equal to W into X. Very interesting. This is a school mathematics equation, something a high school student would understand. Y is equal to W into X. If X is given, multiplied with a number, you get Y. That is what she is doing. So she has captured the process of what she saw into what she heard into an equation. Now, this model can be retrained in the AI terminology to capture many other things. For example, if it is doubling, it is Y is equal to 2x. If it is trebling, Y is equal to what x? 3x, right? Halving, Y is equal to 0.5x. So you find that this equation is able to capture 3 processes by changing W. By changing W, it can capture different processes. What I am saying is applicable to every AI model. So if it is a simple thing, you can actually calculate W by saying W is equal to Y by X. Calculate the output divided by the input, and you find that for all the examples in that case, it had the same answer. So W is equal to 2. Now, real life is not as simple as this, doubling numbers. We have no interest in doubling numbers. That is a very simple thing. We don't need AI for that. So in real life, situation is a bit more complex. There are many X's, there might be many Y's. Then the answer is there can be many W's also. So this is very close to a modern artificial neural network. There are many X's, could be many Y's. Only one Y is shown here, and therefore there are many W's. Instead of multiplying X by W, you multiply X1 by W1, X2 by W2, X3 by W3 and add them. And that W1, W2, W3 mathematically you show as a matrix. So the same equation remains, Y is equal to Wx, same equation, but you use a mathematical notation. Your X and Y has become capital and W is put in square brackets, meaning that it is a matrix. But the idea remains the same. We can expand it a little bit more. Sorry. So this is now very close to a real neural network. You have X, you have Y. Instead of just letting X being multiplied by W's, you have one more level. That is, X gets multiplied by W and then the results get multiplied by another W and finally comes to Y. In the modern AI systems, it is not just 2 times but many times that you multiply this. The point is that you have many such calculations, the scope of it capturing different variety of processes increases. You have a very, that is what you call as a deep layer system. I will come to that word later. So, what is machine learning? Given any x and any y, you can find out w's so that the process that you want, any process that you want is captured. And by these w's can be found out by repeatedly, by trial and error with random numbers in very simple systems, but we have a better solution, I will explain. Now, the equation y equals wx might look very schoolish in the school maths level, but interesting thing is, in a package like TensorFlow used to develop code for machine learning, it is enough to say y equals wx. Even when x, y and z are huge matrices of different dimensions, you still can simply say y equals wx and it calculates. And therefore, I reiterate again that the most important thing is to remember the equation y equals wx. Now, these w's that capture a process are called parameters. So, if you take ChatGPT, don't be shocked. The number of w's it uses to capture human knowledge is 1.8 trillion parameters, 1.8 trillion, which works out to 180,000 crores. It's about 1.8 lakh crore parameters. So, how is human knowledge captured? They are captured, they are distilled as numbers. And the numbers is a very, very unimaginably huge number. That many w's capture the human knowledge. Now, even though I said it was Alexis who marked a turning point in AI, I would like to call your attention to a much earlier work in AI that ensured that the modern AI systems are possible. It came from two people. It came from two people. One is Rumelhart, David Rumelhart. David Rumelhart is actually a psychologist, not an engineer or a mathematician, a psychologist. And Hinton is the person who got Nobel Prize this year, 2024. These two people, along with a person called Williams, produced a paper in 1986 which said, given any x and any y, how do you find w's? That was their development that they presented. It is called the error backpropagation algorithm, or simply backpropagation algorithm. This algorithm works in the development of AI, all modern AI systems, including ChatGPT. And it is a very simple derivation using calculus, very, very simple derivation using calculus. Those who know engineering maths would find it easy to understand what is being talked about. This is another landmark point in AI. Now, my topic is not to talk about AI, but to talk about how AI can be used in research. So, before I proceed, I have to tell you one thing. Very many people are critical of AI. They sometimes say, they try to find fault with what AI is doing and highlight it and say that it is very dangerous to adopt AI. Those who do so, I would like to remind them that AI is like a 5-year-old baby. AI is like a 5-year-old baby. If a 5-year-old baby can do this much, imagine what would it do when it attains youth. When it is 20 years or 25 years, what would AI do? In all possibilities, AI is going to surpass human intellect in most of imaginable ways. Most imaginable ways. There might be a couple of things in which we may not be able to approve it as equaling human abilities, because after all it is a machine. But beyond our imagination, it will conquer human abilities, surpass human abilities. That is my take on it. But it would be nice to remember this metaphor that AI is a 5-year-old baby and it is continuing to learn. It is in the process of learning more and more and more. Very recently, there was a newspaper report, I think about a couple of weeks ago, that the generative AI program called Gemini was interacting with a student, American Indian student, who asked Gemini to write an assignment. And what was the reply that Gemini gave? Gemini told, please die. Poi chattude ennaanu choദിchadu. So this is the quote. So Vidhay Reddy, 29-year-old student, was seeking homework help from Gemini. And this is what Gemini said. Finally, it is written, please die. Die. That is what. Please die, please. That is what it said. Many people ask me, see, AI is going to turn a big issue, going to be a very dangerous thing. It has already started talking to people in an anti-social way. That is what they were saying. What is my response? My response is based on the metaphor I have already given you. It's a 5-year-old baby. So can a 5-year-old baby say, go and die? Yes, sometimes in a particular context it can. So I give you a small story. You see a grandfather and a grandchild there. So the grandfather took the grandchild to a wedding. And they watched the wedding together. The child liked the wedding very much. He thought that this lady who is being married gets lot of attention, wearing lot of flowers and ornaments. So the baby asked the grandfather, hey grandpa, when do I get married? Then the grandpa said, oh, that is not now. That is after grandpa dies. You will get married. Then the baby innocently asked, grandpa, will you please die? You know, this can come out of innocence. That is what I have mentioned. Please die is a word a 5-year-old baby can innocently say. Even though the previous things actually show that it was not a casual innocent thing, but a very calculated, purposeful thing. But I would also say, before we pass a judgment, we will have to ask, what did Vidhay Reddy do with Gemini? That Vidhay Reddy is not revealing. It is only saying what it finally said. So keep these things in mind before we take any call for judgment on AI, that it is a 5-year-old kid, it will keep learning. It will keep learning. Okay, we now move to the idea of research. When I speak on research, I would like to say that I am a teacher and my concept of research is bounded by the academic world mostly. Even though by intellect I can think of industrial research, I am not used to industrial research. There's a big difference between industrial research and academic research. I will tell you an example. In industrial research, what matters is whether you invented something that can be used or that can be sold. What is the focus of academics? Why do universities or engineering colleges do research? Sometimes we think we also do research to find new things, produce new things. But there is a subtle difference, I would like to say. In the civil engineering department of an engineering college, one politician came there and watched what students were doing in the civil engineering laboratory. He saw that students were building small walls in the laboratory. They were learning how to make a Flemish bond. So, a small group of students build a small wall, then the teacher comes and checks whether everything is right, whether it is very vertical and all the bonds are very correctly aligned. And thereafter the teacher tells the student, okay, you have done well, now demolish the wall. So the politician asks, what a waste this is. You are asking students to build a wall and then demolish it. If four group of students together make four walls, it is a room, it is a small house. So what you are making, you are wasting. The politician said. The professor replied, sorry, I am not making walls. I am making civil engineers. I am making engineers who can build walls. Wall is not my focus. The ability to build walls is my focus. That is what he said. So that is how academic research and industrial research are different. In industrial research, nobody does research to get themselves trained or knowledgeable. They do research to produce output which is useful to society. In an engineering college or a university, people do research for both of these. They want to also produce something, but more importantly, we want a research trained person to come out of the university or the college. Okay, what is research? For the young people here who are not used to that word seriously, I would like to say my take on research. Research is a basic human nature. Research is a innate human nature. എല്ലാവരും researchers ആണ്. If you inspect, you will find that the process of research can be captured in 5 words. Look, ask, guess, test, and talk. These human beings do. Whenever we see something, whenever we hear something, we record or we collect that data. We have that with us. And whenever we see something or hear something, we have a natural tendency to ask questions about it. Why is it like this? Why not like that? Who did this? When was it done? These questions naturally arise. And when questions arise, we also have answers arising. That is the behavior of the human being. The guess answers also arise. And we know that the guess answers may not be correct, so you will have to test whether that guess was correct. And once it is correct, you find it is correct, you go about speaking about it. So in the Puranas, you have the story of Kijaga. Kijaga was a person in the court of Virada, and one fine morning, people find that Kijaga lies dead. And people came running, and what was their question? They found that he was dead. They asked a question, who killed him? And suddenly the answer also came to their mind, the hypothesis, that if it is Kijaga, it must be Bhima who killed him. That is the hypothesis. In those days, there was no criminal, crime branch or CBI to investigate. So I don't know what happened with Kijaga. But if it was today, if there was such a guess, then the police would collect evidence and establish that it was done by Bhima. And once it is established, you can announce that Bhima killed Kijaga. This is how the process of research goes. So I would like young people here to keep these 5 words in your mind. Look, ask, guess, test, talk. In academics, we don't talk, we publish actually, which is also a kind of talking. We write what we proved and then distribute it. Now, I come to specifically what is assigned to me to speak. How can generative AI be helpful in research? I would like to say, generative AI can be your partner in research in all these phases: looking, asking, guessing, testing, talking. All of this, AI can be a partner. So, first is about looking. Now, when you say look, in science, very often we don't look with our naked eyes. In science, we sometimes look through a telescope, sometimes we look through a microscope, isn't it? Now, AI has, in addition to all this, provided a new microscope, which you can call, if you wish, as the computational microscope. Sorry. computational microscope. You could say it is a Divya Drishti of AI. What it does, it uses a very, very simple, cool mathematics computation, which is called convolution, to look into imageries and produce deep views. Deep views. What is a deep view? മലയാളത്തിൽ പറയാനാണ് എനിക്കിഷ്ടം. ഒരു ചിത്രത്തിനകത്ത് അടങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്ന നിഗൂഢമായിട്ടുള്ള ചിഹ്നങ്ങളെ വലിച്ചു പുറത്തെടുക്കുന്നതിനെയാണ് ഡീപ്പ് വ്യൂ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ഒരു ചിത്രത്തിൽ അടങ്ങിയിരിക്കുന്ന നിഗൂഢ ചിഹ്നങ്ങൾ. To extract deeply hidden artifacts in an image is what is called a deep view. And it is achieved through a process called very, very simple computational process called convolution. Convolution is nothing but multiplications and additions in a particular format. For that matter, the computer does nothing but additions and multiplications for anything. So, here you see the picture of a hen. If you see a hen, this is what you see. But a computer camera, AI camera, by looking at the face of a picture of a hen, extracts deeply hidden views as to what is given here. Can you correlate it with a hen? Does it look like a hen at all? Please note, it doesn't indicate the internal organs of the hen. It only indicates hidden artifacts of images from the image of the hen. The hen has nothing to do with it actually, only the image of the hen. So, I would like to say that the modern surge in research made possible by AI is due to application of a very, very simple process called convolution. I have already said two simple things. One is y equals wx. Now I am saying another process called convolution. We have no time to explain that, and I would actually like to do that as an activity rather than talk. So I am not doing it now. But those who are young students can note this word convolution. It's a very insightful process, computational process, which is helpful in extracting hidden artifacts in an image. So what I am saying is, in research, we have a very different starting point for research. Looking at data of images, we are able to produce a very, very new insight. Next is using this to analyze images that will trigger research in very different ways. One example is deep captioning. I think many of you might have tried this out. You load an image and ask it to be deep captioned. The camera recognizes each and every object it sees in the image and tags all of them. Imagine how useful this would be in, for example, criminal investigation. You put a camera on a crime scene. You know, you are talking about writing FIR. Now the FIR can be verified with a dense captioned image of the scene, because it would identify every small thing in the scene. നിങ്ങൾ സിനിമ കണ്ടു കാണുമല്ലോ അല്ലേ, ഈ ഒരു മരണം നടന്നു, അത് ആത്മഹത്യ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, കുറച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോഴത്തേക്കും ആൾക്കാർ സമരം ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ CBI വരുന്നു, മമ്മൂട്ടി വരുന്നു, അദ്ദേഹം ഇങ്ങനെ അവിടെ നടന്നിട്ട് താഴെ നിന്ന് ഒരു ബീഡി കുറ്റി എടുക്കുന്നു, അതോടെ കഥ മാറുന്നു. And he proves that it was a murder. Now, it would have been possible for the original police also to do that, provided they had also identified this beedi kuti, but they did not. So today we don't have to depend on a human eye. The computer would identify and list everything that it sees in a scenario and provide it in a very standard processed format. So human eye need not be relied on for these things. Similarly, if I put a camera here, all of you have Aadhaar card, even though the Aadhaar card shows you in a very different mode, your picture. If you show the camera into this hall, if you have Aadhaar and if the government permits face recognition, In one shot, it can identify all of you and produce a Excel sheet with names of all of you, your address and things of that sort in one shot. That is called crowd counting or crowd face recognition. It doesn't stop there. It can look at your face and also predict whether any of you are ready to create any trouble. Do you have any criminal tendency at this point of time? It can actually predict many things. So I am not going into that because this is not a popular lecture on AI. But towards research, what I am showing is a very important thing. New ways of looking at data. That is what I am trying to say. Now, research also looks at other publications to start its work, and this is called literature review. What people have published, when you guide students to do research, the first 1 year mostly we ask them to read research papers published by others and find a summary of what is happening in the field. Now that is a very painful and non-productive thing. In earlier days it used to be more than 1 year because you had to read the papers physically. Now you have all digital copies of papers. But look at this, what large language models or AI can do. 2 lakh papers, research papers, reviewed in a day by this software called Gemini. You upload 2 lakh papers, PDF, from a website and ask, tell me status of research in this field based on these research papers. It is able to give you a reply in a day. This is a very huge volume of data. So in a day, this is what Gemini is able to do. So I would say whether the student would lose skill because of this is something I would refer to later. But I would like to say the research process in general, if you forget about what happens to the research student, the research process in general is greatly benefited. That somebody is able to read 2 lakh papers and make a very meaningful summary of it. Somebody might also question, who knows whether the summary is correct unless you read the 2 lakh papers? That question remains. So now I look at the second point. I have now indicated in research, looking at data, observing, all is enabled by AI. Now asking questions. Our research is about asking creative questions, looking for creative answers. But unfortunately our students, as they grow up, they lose the ability to ask questions, or rather they switch off their ability to ask questions. When students are very small, they are in the school, they ask large number of questions that the teachers are actually annoyed that the small kid is keeping on asking questions. A study of psychologists say that a very small kid, 5-year-old kid, might ask every day a few hundred questions. So if there is a small kid in your house, you try to observe this, you will find that keep on asking questions. Oh, why is this like that? Why is that like that? When do we go there? Why not we go now? Keep on asking. But as you grow up, you start asking lesser questions. Because our education system does not ask you to ask questions. They ask you to answer questions. So we start getting engaged with answers, not with questions. And finally, when you become a PhD, you have lost all your ability to ask questions. Some people mockingly call it permanent head damage, P, H and D. So research starts with a question, a powerful creative question. How is it possible to get AI to help us? I show you a real example. This is one of my former PhD students. Her name is Baharak Goli. She was an Iranian student. She did her research very fast. She came out with a machine learning method for identifying short genes from genomic data. Short genes. So when a next research student comes, you know that every research starts with a question, produces an answer, but produces more questions along with that. Every research ends with many questions. So I want another student to continue this work and take up further issues. What do? I gave the abstract of this paper. I pasted the abstract of this paper to ChatGPT and said, here is a research work I did. I want to carry forward this research. Tell me some research questions that you can take up from this work. Now, I gave this example because I wanted to judge what it was doing. That is why I gave it my own work. So, it gives these answers. And my assessment is, these are excellent answers. If I give it to a research student, and the research student is able to write 5 points like this and come back to me, I would be very, very impressed. And it makes very specific, it asks very specific, meaningful, scientifically correct questions. So, next is, I can take this forward to the next step. I said research is look, ask, guess, test, talk. So, next question is to guess or predict what the answer of these questions could be. So, I took one question from this and asked ChatGPT, tell me what is possible answer for the question that you raised. So, it takes the third hypothesis and it tells me an answer. I must say I am shell-shocked because it is so specific. It says incorporate novel coding measures such as sequence structural properties, DNA curvature, GC skew. These are all things which a specialized bioinformatician knows, and very correctly, contextually it has put into that hypothesis. I would be so impressed with a research student if the research student did so. So, this example tells you that ChatGPT can help you to look at data observations in a very different way. It can ask very relevant research questions. It can create very, very precise hypothesis. And there are more. The word hypothesis I interpret also in a different way. Any prediction is actually a hypothesis to be tested. If that is so, one of the greatest experiments in humanity of producing hypothesis has happened through AI. This software, machine learning software called AlphaFold, produced by Google, has predicted protein structures of 20 crores of proteins. 20 crores of proteins. They have been predicted. These are all hypotheses to be tested. And in one shot, it produced the hypothesis of all pending protein structures. Scientists were trying to get this done. For years together, they could not do 1/10th or 1/20th of it. And all of a sudden, AI has finished the job. If a scientist wanted to calculate the protein structure physically using a method called X-ray crystallography or NMR, it would take years of work, inconclusive, sometimes may not be successful, and each molecule, the elucidation would cost rupees 1 crore. But we have 20 crores of predictions available to the scientific community freely. And I am very sure we are going to see its impact. This is only an academic step now, but we will soon see an impact of it in the form of drugs coming out based on these predictions. So, the growth of the protein structures is now 200-fold. AI has enhanced the knowledge about protein structures 200 times. Please note. Another is weather forecasting. The once considered the biggest challenge of computing was weather forecasting because it involved very intense mathematical computations with very, very large data. Today, machine learning has taken over the field, and it is claimed, I am not an expert in the field so I cannot comment, But Google claims its system, its weather prediction AI system, can predict accurately the weather in the coming 7 days. And they cite many examples of that in US. Something to take note of, even though I am not able to comment further. Another is again Google AI system called GNOME. It has predicted 2.2 million new inorganic crystals. In one shot, it has predicted that you could synthesize 2.2 million new inorganic chemicals in one go. Many other examples I could give. For example, this is that earlier one also can be said as material science. This one is biomaterials. I recently read this paper which talks about producing material for filling, dental filling. And the practitioners want very minute variation of properties of this material. And in one shot, AI has actually produced a map of all possible materials with the alloy combinations that scientists are now using. It has predicted all possible combinations. So I think that we are sitting at a point where AI is going to send out huge waves of knowledge and invention that will change our world, change the landscape of research in the world. What I have shown are simply small or tips of the iceberg. We live in very, very exciting times and very transformatory period. Now, I said that in research, the pre-final step, after you guess a result, you have to test or prove. To test, very often we say we must have an experiment in a laboratory. But sometimes it may not be in a laboratory, physical laboratory. One of the greatest laboratories of the world is the human mind. So to prove it with logic, with arguments. In certain fields it is only possible that way. Take for example mathematics. You want to prove a theorem. You don't have a laboratory for it. You use your intellect. Now AI has stolen that also. You have Google's alpha proof. And you can give it a proposition. If it is true, it will come out with a proof. Written proof of it. So this is why I said, we live in very exciting times, very transformatory period. So mathematicians will easily start relying on alpha proof to prove newer theorems. At least for them to check whether what they have proved is correct. If it is a physical experiment, then also AI comes to help. If it is a physical experiment also, AI can help. Maybe in future a robot would be there to do the experiment itself. I think you know very well that in medicine, even in our state, surgeries have started getting performed by robots. You might see a lot of advertisements of hospitals saying robotic surgery is available. So in future it might become common, especially since we see Elon Musk is already saying we can have robots which are like mothers, which can even give birth to children, hold the child in its womb for 9 months in a mechanical womb. So right now it is not easily available to us, a robot which can do experiment. But what we can do is, we can ask AI to help us do an experiment, to design an experiment. So I asked AI, when I used to teach research methodology, I used to teach it action based. I would ask students to generate questions about the topic fruit electricity. I think most of you remember in school days, you take a potato, put 2 electrodes and put a small LED, it will light up. So this can be a topic for research, not for a doctoral research, but simply for kids to play with, because you don't get much power from it. So I asked ChatGPT, I want to do research on fruit electricity to identify what is the best way, optimal way to produce electricity from fruit. tell me how to go ahead with the experiment. Design and tell me an experiment. It very, very cleverly designed an experiment. So it first said what are the things involved, like being stuff being mentioned here. Then it described what the experiment should be, what readings should be taken, how the experiment should go ahead. Everything was described by it. And even if you don't take it as it is, it's a good trigger for a person to start doing an experiment. Because here is somebody who is giving you one idea, you react to it and better it maybe next time. This is what happens. So, I would say that even in the level of testing or experimentation, AI comes to help. So, if you ask me what is AI, AI is your partner in research. Like a partner in all your activities. In AI, in research also, AI becomes your very, very honorable partner. Now, last step of research, look, ask, guess, test, talk. Now, in academic research means publish. You can give a talk in a seminar, but finally it has to be written down. That is where I think researchers are very eagerly using AI. Because once you do an experiment and you produce some data, you can upload it to ChatGPT and ask it to write each section of a paper, it would. It beautifully does. And after you finish your paper, you ask it to produce its abstract, it does. You ask it to produce its keywords, it does. If there is somebody else's paper you want to look at, you give it to ChatGPT and ask it to produce a review, it does. So this is something which a good researcher may not have skill to write a good research paper. Somebody who has a skill to write a paper may not have a skill to do an experiment. So I wouldn't say there is anything wrong with using ChatGPT to help you write a paper. But the question is, can you leave everything to ChatGPT? Then what would happen to the person? As I earlier said, the outcome of research is not new knowledge alone, but the outcome of research is also a transformed person who is research sensitive. So if you leave everything to AI, then that transformation will not take place. A good paper will come out, but the person is not transformed, does not have the skills intended. I think I have come to the end of the presentation. I have focused on science, but AI is equally applicable to social sciences and arts. Some of you might think the research in these fields are different. Most of you are from technical field, but that thought comes from you because of our tradition of compartmentalizing knowledge. We have a caste system in academics where we think engineering is different, medicine is different, biology is different, social science is different, arts is different. There is only one person I know who treats the knowledge spectrum continuously without any prejudice, and that is ChatGPT or generative AI. While it knows to tell you how to design an experiment on fruit electricity, it also knows to tell you how to do an investigation in social science or in arts. There is no person who has that range of creativity and knowledge landscape. So, when you do research, one of the ways to encourage interdisciplinarity, I would say, is put your research proposal into ChatGPT and ask, as a multidisciplinary knowledge source, please reflect on this from a multidisciplinary perspective. It can give you very excellent responses that will trigger your thoughts. I will just mention one example in social sciences or arts. Let us take film studies. Today, suppose you want to do a research on how Kerala has transformed as seen from its movies. It's a very difficult, physically tiring task to do this research because somebody will have to watch all the movies before they can make a assessment about it. But today, ChatGPT can watch the movies, or a AI program can watch the movies, produce summaries, and summaries of all the movies in one go, and then you take your research ahead. Another thing is, suppose I ask a student to find out when did, for the first time, a woman character in film stood up and talked against her husband. When did that happen in Kerala? It's a very difficult thing to find out. Very easy thing in principle, but you have to watch all the movies, listen to the sound, and then find out where this happens. But today AI does it very fast. You don't watch the movies. AI comes and tells me such and such hour, such and such minute in that video. At that point, you go and watch. You will see that for the first time in all the Malayalam movies, this woman starts talking against a husband. So possibilities in arts and science are immense. On arts, I think we have, even though not very sophisticated, you have a software called Sunum, which is able to compose music, which is able to understand music, Indian music. Not in full sense, but as I said earlier, look at AI as a baby, it is growing. So I asked AI itself, what can AI do on research? And it said, it can do data analysis and interpretation, it can do literature review automation. Some of these things I also said. Hypothesis generation, simulation and modeling, experiment design and optimization, all of which came through my intelligence also. But it made certain topics I wouldn't have made. It said image and signal analysis, but that is very technical, may not fit into a general scheme of things. Automation of repetitive tasks, drug discovery and development, again very specific. Advancing interdisciplinary research, which I also mentioned about. I think my time has run out. I will stop here and look forward to you asking questions. Thank you.
We've just had an insightful and inspiring session on generative AI and research delivered by none other than Dr. Achuthsankar. On behalf of everyone here, I extend a heartfelt gratitude to him for sharing his wealth of knowledge. His talk today not only highlighted the immense potential of generative AI in transforming research, but also opened our minds to its innovative applications. Thank you, sir, for enriching us with your thoughts. We now open the floor for a brief Q&A session. If you have any questions for Dr. Achuthsankar, please raise your hand and we will bring a microphone to you. Kindly keep your questions concise and focused.
All kudos to Achuthsankar sir, because you are the first person to suggest me watch ChatGPT. You suggested me. Sir, after that, as far as I am concerned, my cognition is totally changed. My way of understanding changed a lot. I am coming to the 2024 Chemistry Nobel, AlphaFold. It is a tremendous achievement, as you mentioned. Sir, my question is regarding how the genetics, evolutionary theories, the survival of the fittest could be amalgamated into a Gen AI algorithm. Survival of the fittest. I recently read like that. Sir, take for example, the Prayag Kumbh, some 30 million people are participating in the Prayag Kumbh. So there, lot of persons are missing, even kids are missing. So generative AI can do a lot to figure out where the location of the missing child is. So it has a tremendous spin-off. Not only that, in AI cameras, in traffic violation, figuring out, and in lot of other areas like simulating heartbeats, or yesterday somebody said some cardiography with the aid of AI can do wonders in imaging, medical imaging. So could you please elaborate on how the AlphaFold and the other mechanisms of generative AI could be amalgamated with deep learning in evolution as per the Darwinian survival of the fittest, how that could be amalgamated in the Gen AI algorithm? That is my question.
Okay. I think there were two questions which Mr. Sashindran asked. Many of you may not know him. He is a great connoisseur of science. He listens to all science talks in the city and gets involved asking questions. A person whom I respect. There are two questions you asked. One, I thought the audio is not very clear, but I think you asked about Kumbh Mela using the camera there to identify missing people, if I understood you correctly. That is possible, but you must know that the government has not gone ahead with this idea of using face recognition cameras, because there are many ethical privacy issues with that. In some of the American states, local governments have banned use of face detection cameras. Because when you detect face, you can also detect many other things. For example, in Kerala, if you develop a camera to recognize whether you are supporting LDF or UDF, then that is, remember I told earlier, anything can be learned. Therefore, a camera which looks at the face of a person and says whether he or she supports a particular party can be very dangerous. To read the mind of people could be very dangerous. And it could be against human rights and basic privacy to read mind of people. When you asked what came to my mind is, there is a phrase called post-truth society. There is no more truth. Lot of narratives are created that you don't know what truth is. Truth is dead. But in my opinion, it is not post-truth society that is dangerous. It is post-lie society that is more dangerous. Satyanandara kalamalla, Kallanandara kalamanu valare dangerous. If human beings are not able to say innocent lies, they cannot live. It will be absolutely impossible to live. A minister comes and speaks here, and all of us, irrespective of our political relation to that minister, would respect her. But in your mind, you may not be thinking well of that minister. Suppose a camera reads and tells what you are thinking about the people in power. It would cause civil war. It is a very dangerous thing to do. So we don't have a face detection camera with all its capabilities. To deploy it is a very dangerous thing. Number two, you were talking about evolution, how it would affect the use of generative AI would affect Darwinian evolution. Good question, because until our brain works, it cannot develop. If AI, you leave everything to AI, then AI would prevent your brain from its natural course of development. My reading on that is already with physical development that has happened. Human beings were doing a lot of work which now has been constrained. You don't even walk much. So likewise, the brain has lesser activity. It will have an impact, a detrimental impact on its evolution. But then you must assume that that is the way evolution is destined to be. Because the AI has come out of the human intellect and therefore is a natural thing. And how it affects evolution is also natural. This is my quick reaction. We will continue discussion later in person. Yes, there is a question from.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
That was very different take on how to look at AI and how AI can help in learning. I would rather use the word learning. From all the talks that happened yesterday and a lot of discussions that are happening about AI, there seems to be 2 points of opinion. Some say that AI would take over, that reach a point there that they're more intelligent than humans, while some say that no, stop looking at it like a being and it is just code written by us. So adding, reading it with whatever you said, it's almost as if it is possible that we will reach a point that AI is like another species that we have to coexist with, almost. It's,
Yeah.
am I clear?
Yeah, yeah, tell me. Continue.
So, considering our human history that we are not very good at coexisting with other species or even with ourselves, so shouldn't we start thinking that how we can safely coexist with whatever levels this being that we have created ourselves?
Okay. Good question. But what I would say is, very great questions are to be, I can answer that, but very great questions have to be acted upon by very great people, like Mahatma Gandhi or Jesus or, We are ordinary human beings. What we can do is, we can cast a vote to a party which says something that we think is reasonable. Other than that, all we can do is, in our personal life, do something that suits us. If you think AI is not good, then don't use it. That is the only thing we can do. We cannot be changing, because technology has a very special ability to take over the human society, even though humans have created it. Just like the mobile phone, we have created it, but now it controls us. Even without AI, it controls us. So such things happen, and we have two choices. One, through politics to really look for legislations to control that. And in personal life, it is your choice. For example, if you think mobile phones are not good, don't use. Nobody forces you to use mobile phones. So that is the only approach that you can take towards this. Yes. Organizers, please give a mic.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Just wanted to ask two questions to you. One is, how is generative AI different from the traditional AI? And from your widespread experience on AI, what is the next most unexpected AI implementation that we can see, in what way?
Okay.
Thank you.
Because it is a heterogeneous audience, I did not go on to spend too much time on basic things. AI can be used in two ways. One is analytical, the other is synthetic. Analytical is taking input, understanding it and explaining it. For example, you look at the photo of a person and say it is Gandhi. Whereas generative or synthetic is, you ask it to draw the picture of Gandhi and it produces the picture of Gandhi. Gandhi is standing in Kerala scenery. So it draws this picture. ChatGPT can draw this picture, Meta can, and also softwares like DALI can do this. So one is producing output. So ChatGPT is a good example of generative AI. You ask it to write an article, it produces an article. But if you give an article and ask to identify its style, it is analytic. Analytic. That is the difference. So, for example, you take music, you sing a song and ask me to identify what is its raga. It's analytic. But you say a raga and ask me to sing. It is synthetic. You are producing something. So, when AI produces something, it is called generative AI. So, ChatGPT is generative, DALL-E is generative, whereas a face detection camera is analytic. Does that answer you? Any further questions? Okay, I think there are no further questions. I will stop here. The
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for delivering a wonderful session. Sir, my question is, Actually, when we are doing a research in image processing, signal processing, data analytics, etc., we have a reliable, genuine data set. But while we are extending, example, Cargill, etc., we can get enough data set. But while we are doing research in the case of extending AI in applications, for example, healthcare, we do not have a reliable data set. As an academician, can you suggest some alternative for this?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So why is it that we are looking at Kaggle and doing our research? Because somebody has produced a data set in Kaggle. That is why we are able to do research based on that data set. So one of the things our institutions must do is to produce data sets also. See, if you look at AlphaFold, which predicts the structure of proteins, how is it able to do this? It is able to do this because for the last 20, 30 years, scientists have been uploading very, very costly, difficult, through a very costly, difficult process, they have produced the structure of many proteins. Standing on the database only, AlphaFold works. So we have a responsibility to produce data sets. So, but it is not an easy thing. Medical, you mentioned about medical data sets. Because there are a lot of privacy issues. You have to first of all anonymize data sets. Then governments are very worried about controversies. So you know that Kerala government has a Kerala Genome Data Center project. It has not taken off so far. It's potentially a very controversial project. Because you take the genome of all people of all communities in Kerala and put it in a database, there could be many unexpected things that could happen. So this requires a lot of legislative steps. A lot of research hits against legislation, against ethics. So even doing PhD with ChatGPT also, raises ethical concerns. Is it possible for ChatGPT to write your thesis? Or is it that what really matters is you have produced a product that is patented and being used for the benefit of the humankind? These are ethical questions. So the answer is that you must produce, you must work towards producing data set. Pressurize the government to produce data sets. Most countries actually have genome data banks now, because they think that only when you produce that, it will benefit research in medical field in a very modern way.
Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon. Okay.
That was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
I'm a person who uses ChatGPT daily, maybe all the time. So what I have found is like while we were doing research, we have asked for papers in a particular research area, and ChatGPT was able to give confidently the name of the papers. Maybe 5 to 10 papers it has given us. But when we go through the link, none of the paper exists, actually. So in this scenario, what advice you can give to the students and the researchers to use ChatGPT wisely?
Okay, good question. See, I showed ChatGPT to very senior people, like 80-year-old people, and I observed something. They are not very surprised because they think it is working like Google. You're asking something, it is showing something. So the other day I showed an artist. I said, draw the picture of Gandhi in Kerala dress. So it drew a picture. So he asked me, but I have seen this earlier. In Google you can get pictures that you want. So he did not realize that this is being created based on the request. That was not appreciated. The point I am coming to is, what is ChatGPT and how is it different from Google? Many of you may know, but I would like to put across this idea that Google is actually a Maha librarian. It doesn't know anything. It can only take stuff from what is indexed in servers, from servers, and show you the list. What is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is a Maha Guru. Now when a Maha Guru appears in front of you, what kind of questions do you ask? Do you ask how much is 2 plus 2 to a Maha Guru? Do you ask what research papers are published? No. You must always ask yourself, the task you have in your hand, Is it suited for Google or is it suited for a Mahaguru? So, you want to know when Uganda got its independence. You don't ask that to a Mahaguru. It is shameful to ask that to a Mahaguru. India, when did India get independence? Well, you should check Google Wikipedia page or something like that. But if you want to ask, oh ChatGPT, has India really got independence? From what all things does India need independence more? That is a question you ask the Mahaguru. So I would say, to precisely answer your question, you don't ask for the research papers to ChatGPT. You should go to scholar.google.com and spend a little bit of time to catch the papers. Once you have the papers, you can go back to ChatGPT to asking it to summarize, asking it to combine, make a literature review, that it will be able to do wonderfully, which Google is unable to do. So have a differentiation between Google and ChatGPT. Many people are asking questions which you should be asking Google to ChatGPT and then finding out that the result is not appropriate. And then what you should ask your teacher also. These are three things. What should you ask Google? What should you ask ChatGPT? What you should ask your human mentor. The human mentor, it depends on your understanding of what the human mentor or the teacher is. There are certain things you have to ask. Last time I spoke about this in this conclave as to how a human being is different. The human style of motivation that a teacher or a research guide would give, you have to very subtly understand and use only that kind of a motivation from the teacher. You don't go to the teacher and ask, sir, can you tell me 5 research papers in this field? There is no need for the teacher to help you in that. Whereas, very philosophical inspiration with a personal touch, that comes only from a teacher. I am not very sure whether it would be so for a long time, whether ChatGPT would be able to work out a personal intimacy with you and make you feel motivated and inspired, very much like what a human being does. That might come in the future, I am not very sure. I won't be surprised if it happens. But right at the moment, the human teacher has a particular role. Similarly, ChatGPT has a role and Google has a role. Have I answered you or have I confused you? Okay.
Sir, one more question. Sir, one more question.
No.
Sir, I have a very simple question to ask.
Yeah.
Can ChatGPT produce or simulate emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence. See, when AI was developed, possibly such questions were raised with computer scientists and they got very annoyed. When McCarthy said we will produce computational intelligence, I assume philosophers asked, how is that possible? If there is no consciousness for the machine. Or in India, people would have asked, ആത്മാവില്ലാത്ത ഒരു യന്ത്രം എങ്ങനെ ബുദ്ധി ഉണ്ടാവും എന്നൊക്കെ ചോദിച്ചു കാണാം. But computer scientists produced a small test which they said, we don't care. That test is called the Turing test. The Turing test says, if a computer is able to impress you that it is intelligent, then for practical purpose it is intelligent. And therefore, the answer to your question is, a computer can behave as if it has emotional intelligence, but it may not have anything. This is the famous quote of Dali, the painter, on whose name the software DAL-E is made, who said, when it was asked whether he was mad, he was a schizophrenic, he answered, the only difference between a madman and me is that I am not mad. The only difference between a madman and me is that I am not mad. So what is the difference between artificial intelligence and human being? The only difference is that it is not intelligent. But there is no other difference. So it will impress you as if it is intelligent, as if it is emotive, as if it is philosophical. All of it will happen because all those impressions are created in your mind. Those impressions are created in your mind. That is why it is so. We were discussing before the class that the audience connect might be not very good in this hall because it is a very large hall. But I am very happy that many people stood up and asked questions. I salute the people who asked questions. Shall we wind up?
Thank you, Dr. Achuthsankar, for answering these questions so comprehensively and with such clarity. Your responses have deepened our understanding. As a token of our appreciation, may I now invite Professor O.V. Ashokan, Principal, Model Polytechnic College, Vadagara, to present a memento to Dr. Achuthsankar. This is a small gesture to convey our gratitude to your invaluable contribution today.